Welcome, ladies and gents, to the Football Podcast. Today we're ranking our top 15 wide receivers and edge rushers.
Yeah, so today we're going to be running through lists that we compiled on our own and sort of matching them up, finding the similarities that we have, and I think many differences. I have not seen Adam's list. Adam, in order to make the graphics, has seen mine, and I've heard that there were quite a few differences, so that should be pretty fun.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we get into that, Jonathan, I believe there's a little topic or something that's gone on this week that you want to talk about.
Yeah, so actually, about 6 hours ago or so, as of when we're recording this, the Chiefs extended George Karlaftis, the edge rusher, to a 4-year, $93 million contract. I mean, my first reaction to this was simply Brett Veach does it again, which it feels like I say that with pretty much every move that he makes. But this is something where a lot of people don't understand how much of the pass rush is on George Karlaftis' shoulders because people think about Chris Jones, but Chris Jones is an interior lineman. He's nose tackle half of the time. And so in terms of a true pass rusher, George Karlaftis has been the only reliable player that the Chiefs have had over the last 3 seasons. Now, hopefully, he's going to get a little bit of help with Ashton Gelati from the University of Louisville coming in from the third round of the 2025 draft. But this is something that the Chiefs needed to get done. Really, the only other piece that needs to be extended by the Chiefs is Trent McDuffie. And we're sitting in a position where the Chiefs are going to be able to extend all of the key pieces of their defense, which is something that if you asked me that 6 months ago, I wouldn't believe that we would be able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's two things to highlight when it comes to this conversation. The first one is people have to understand that George Karlaftis, he's not, I doubt he's going to be on either of our lists. The thing though is that he's consistent enough to work within a Spagnuolo scheme that he can effectively generate pressure with the right mismatches. The reason why that's important is because if you remember, before he showed up, they used Chris Jones as an edge rusher because they realized that the only way to consistently get edge pressure from the personnel that they had was to switch Chris Jones to that position. And they had some D tackles that could do good enough in order for them to have a decent rush altogether. And so what Karlaftis did is immediately allow them to use Chris Jones in the position that he is the best, which is rushing from the interior, which is a huge advantage compared to a lot of other pass rushes. Because normally when you think of a pass rush, you think of the strength coming from the edge, where if you can have it consistently coming from the middle, that really, really makes it tough on the quarterback to be able to move up in the pocket and evade that rush.
Absolutely. It's why Chris Jones, in my opinion, it's a travesty that he will probably never win a Defensive Player of the Year in his career. And yet he's consistently been one of the top guys in the NFL really ever since he hit his prime. And in my opinion, he should be a Hall of Famer.
Well, I don't know about that, but the other thing with
Just gonna
let's
disagree
everybody
with me.
calm down. Yeah, but in terms of Veach and how he's been able to manage the team, we've talked about this before, but the Chiefs really have figured out the blueprint and and come to an understanding about which pieces they're willing to let go and which pieces they know that they need to keep. And I think that it probably involves really good communication between the coaching staff and Veach, understanding which positions we're going to prioritize in the draft, which guys we need to keep around, right? Who are going to be the staples of our team? An example is them trading away Joe Thuney this year to then extend and sign Nick Bolton to then extend and sign Karlaftis to then extend and sign Trey Smith. So they're able to get all of these deals done. And yes, it sucks. Joe Thuney is great. He's an incredible guard, potentially the best guard in the league. But the truth is that if you're going to sustain excellence for this long, you're going to have to make those types of hard decisions. The same thing happened with Tyreek Hill, where as soon as a report came out saying that potentially there could be an issue related to signing Tyreek Hill, immediately they traded him before his contract was even up. And so they really have done a great job at understanding and timing when they're going to trade these pieces and get the most that they can out of return, and then supplement the positions that they know they can, for example, the secondary within the draft.
Yeah, well, that's as you just said at the end, that's the thing that ties it all together because it's all well and good picking and choosing well who you need to extend, but if you can't supplement the holes with the draft, then you're going to fail. It's why really the reason for the Chiefs' run over these last, I mean, in terms of specifically these last 3 years, has been the 2022 draft class, which might be the greatest Chiefs draft class in history. And
It
yes,
might
I'm
be.
putting it up there with the Mahomes draft because if you look at 2022, who did they receive? Trent McDuffie, Brian Cook, Najee Johnson, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, all of these guys, all of these pieces who they're not going to receive, uh, you know, top contracts at any point, and they may lose some of them over time. But when you're able to have drafts like that every few years, then you're always going to have the ability to sign big money contracts with the guys you actually have to.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the timeline, like I would argue that maybe potentially didn't they draft Creed, Humphrey, and Trey Smith in the same draft?
Uh, I believe so, yes.
So that's another example, right? Where they had a terrible offensive line. They lost to the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl because of it. And then the next year, they literally got the best center in football and a top 10 guard, like in kind of later rounds. I think Reed Humphrey was a second round pick, but
Creed
either
Humphrey was
way, I
higher,
think Trey
yeah.
Smith was a fifth round pick. So it's one of
Yeah.
those things where it's like they have shown an incredible ability to be able to supplement their holes within the draft. And then after that, pick and choose who they're going to extend and who they're not going to extend. And that's why they've had this dynasty that we see. And, people don't talk about this, but obviously the winning on the field is because of the coaching. It's because of their superstars, Mahomes, Kelsey, all of those guys. And this isn't what I'm about to say isn't to take away from what they're able to do on the field. But the reason why they're able to win 2 Super Bowls in a row and consistently make it to the AFC Championship is because they're always fielding a good, solid squad around those superstars. And that comes from the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. There's really nothing more to be said.
Okay. Well, in that case, I think we can hop into our rankings. So I'm going to share my screen.
I'm really excited for this. I'm
I am too.
interested to see, especially how the wide receiver rankings fell, because I feel like, well, really both of these, wide receiver and edge rush, can be quite subjective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before we get into this, Jonathan, do you want to talk a little bit about what was your thought process going into these rankings? Like, what did you look at? Was it just like, I watched these guys and this is my favorite? Were there certain stats that you valued over others?
Well, so I'll give my criteria really quick. This is an at present ranking of active players. I'm doing
Yes.
relatively little projection and I'm not concerned about all time legacy. For example, I'd rather have Malik Neighbors than Tyreek Hill right now on a long term contract as a franchise. But Tyreek Hill is a better wide receiver right now than Malik Neighbors. Uh, Another thing too is that past performance, I will give the benefit of the doubt, but obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is not on my top 25, even though, or top 15, even though he is one of the greatest receivers in this era. It's also not a fantasy projection or a prediction of who's going to have the best box score at the end of the year. So I'm not saying that these 1 through 15 are going to have, in complete order, the best stat lines. So it's a little bit more so about the skill and the ability and the production of the wide receiver. But I'm not going to say because one guy had a breakout fantasy season and one guy, because he has a terrible quarterback throwing him the ball, is inherently better or worse than the other player.
Yeah, absolutely. So I pretty much did the same thing in terms of a lack of projection, just kind of looking at who they are. And then I used basically three criteria. The first one is I have this was heavily influenced by PFF grades for me because I think they do a good job providing context, but it wasn't as simple as
Okay.
just like ranking the top 15 grades. I also looked at production within the 2024 season specifically, since we are looking at them as they are right now. And then the last thing, because you can look at both of those things and kind of subjectively put them in order. But the last thing I looked at really was just like, what do I think when I'm watching them? Like, how do I view them as wide receivers as I'm watching them? And so I think we can just hop right into it. So starting with my top 15, 15, I have T. Higgins. 14, I have Brian Thomas Jr. 13, I have Malik Neighbors. 12, I have Garrett Wilson. And 11, I have Drake London. So, Jonathan, what are your top 15?
Yeah, so at 15, I have Garrett Wilson, 14, Malik Neighbors, 13, Drake London, 12, Brian Thomas Jr., and 11, Devontae Adams. So we actually have four of the same five guys on here.
We do. They're
But
just in a little different order, but yes.
yeah, so why don't you go ahead and hit me with the T. Higgins sell right away?
Okay. Sounds good. So T. Higgins last year, his overall grade, according to PFF, was an 88.2, which was fifth in the league. He had 73 receptions, 911 yards, and a surprising 10 touchdowns, which was the fifth most of any wide receiver within the league last year. I just think that T. Higgins is a contested catch animal, and a lot of people, when they look at him, they kind of think that he benefits from the fact that that Jamar Chase is on the other side. And while I do think that does benefit him, it's important to understand how the Bengals actually use him. He's more of a deep threat, middle of the field type uh pass catcher. And the reason why that's important is because when you watch him, he is consistently catching balls that are hard to catch. Like, it's not a situation where it's like, oh, because T. Higgins or because Jabbar Chase is getting doubled, therefore T. Higgins is going to have one guy on him and he can just bully ball his way in. Like, that's not. He does do that to an extent, right? Like, he does have, he's great at boxing out. He's great at finding the ball. But also, you have to consider the fact that defenses, if they're putting two on Jamar Chase, normally they don't opt for man coverage across the board and they run some sort of mixed zone and split coverage on either side. So it's not like T. Higgins is just one-on-one most of the time. In fact, based on looking at it, I don't exactly have the stats to back this up, but it looks like more often than not that T. Higgins has that double team, just the way that the zones play out. And so for me, when I'm watching him, and like when we're talking about this list, there's a lot of different guys that you could throw in here. But for me, T. Higgins is a kind of guy that is just consistently making difficult catches over the middle of the field, and then those deep balls with a corner and a safety around him, and he's still coming down with the ball. And of course, just as a red zone threat, there's not many better wide receivers within the NFL. So that's why he made my list.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily disagree with anything that you said. It's just when it came to my criteria, I'll go ahead and tell you my two honorable mentions were T. Higgins and Chris Godwin. And they
Okay.
both didn't make the top 15 for the same reason, which is, and perhaps it's even unfair, but it's my list. I can't put a wide receiver two into that wide receiver one position unless it is like the greatest wide receiver room that, is in the NFL. And C. Higgins is really great. Like I'm saying, he's right there at 16. I just can't fully put him in because of how much is being drawn away from him because of Jamar Chase.
Okay.
That's really it. And that's
What
the
about
one,
the
it's not even, go ahead.
okay? So the question then is, in my mind, is why is Devontae Adams on your list? Because he played with Garrett Wilson last year, and he's going to play with Puka Nacua this year.
That's fair. It's more so because I think that he operates. Devonte Adams is just so individually good that it's almost like, yes, they are operating within a scheme together, but it's also just the fact that I have seen T. Higgins as only a wide receiver two for his entire career. Same pretty much with Chris Godwin for the most part. It's more so just like I haven't seen them do it on their own. And also, I think you would agree with this, unless maybe you don't even have Devonte Adams on this list,
I don't.
then
And just spoiler alert, I
wow.
don't.
Okay. So I guess then let's go ahead and get that out of the room.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and talk about Devonte Adams. So I have him as my number 11, just outside of the top 10, and I
Hmm.
think that Devonte is someone who I know the situation surrounding him was chaotic last season, but it was still enough of a regression and it was still enough to knock him out of my top 10. But we know the traits, we know the skills, we know the route running. If you need a guy for one game, I might even have him in my top 7 or 8. Now, of course, I'm thinking about this in terms of the NFL season as a whole, but I just think Devonte Adams at this point in his career is still skilled enough to where he deserves a spot on this list. And to be clear, that's not because of legacy. I just think that he still has the skill and the talent to be able to be in that area.
Yeah, sure. So I think that it's incredibly close, first off. Especially, I think that figuring out this section of my list was the most time and the most difficult for me to kind of figure out like who
Mhm.
do I want on it and how do I want them ordered. I would put Devonte Adams at number 16. And part of it is just like, again, like when we're talking about these close of things, it's just subjectively like when I'm watching T. Higgins compared to watching Devonte Adams at this point in his career. I feel like these guys are just better than him, just completely subjectively, right? Like there's no stats or anything to back that up. It's just I am watching them play and I'm putting their tape side by side and I'm saying I think that these guys are better. Um, in terms of Devonte Adams, he's obviously an incredible wide receiver. What's great about him is that his strength isn't related to his athletic ability and more just how strategic he is and how disciplined he is with his routes. He still could potentially be the best route runner in the league, but one thing to consider yards after catch, that's a big thing for me. And that's kind of an area where I think he falters a little bit. And then I just think that he's regressed enough within the last few seasons where I look at him and I'm like, he just didn't make my list. It really is as simple as that. Like I wish there was I could give like a more like solidified reason for it, but the truth is that we're talking about guys that in my mind are so close. It really is just what do I like better?
Entirely fair. I think we should go ahead and talk about the two guys who we have inverse. I have Malik
Yes.
Neighbors at 14. You have him at 13. And then I have BTJ at 12. You have him at 14.
Yes.
These are two wide receivers that are coming off of rookie seasons. Why don't you go ahead and make the case for why you have Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. in your list?
Yeah, so well, the reason why they're in my list is just because they're great wide receivers and they did enough within their rookie season to prove that. So first looking at Brian Thomas Jr. Last year he had an 82 overall grade from PFF. He had 87 receptions, 1,200 yards, and 10 touchdowns. He had the 16 highest above replacement percentage at or I guess number at 0.46. And it really was a tale of two halves for him. And that's why I had him below Malik Neighbors. The reason why they're right next to each other on my list is because I think if I were to completely project, I would project Brian Thomas Jr. in the top 10. But since we're not projecting, objectively, I think that when you look at the numbers and when you look at the overall production, Malik Neighbors had a better season than Brian Thomas Jr. last year. I don't expect that to continue for much longer, especially with Liam Cohen coming in, my favorite, right? Like, if I were purely projecting, Brian Thomas Jr. would be a lot higher on this list. But since I'm not, Malik Neighbors, I still think had the edge when you look at his season. So Malik Neighbors last year had an 86 overall grade, a little bit less yards and 7 touchdowns, but overall, um, he still had the ninth best overall grade in the league. And I just think he had more time to prove his skill. It was just a larger sample size.
That's fair. I think my criteria was slightly different in terms of uh I also just look at them and I say, who do I think is the better player? And I would edge out Brian Thomas Jr. I mean,
See, it's
six
one of those
three.
things where it's like, I kind of agree with you, but I still think that Malik Neighbors might have had a better season last year. And that's really it.
And that's fair. I mean, I'll go ahead and talk about Brian Thomas Jr. When I said I was doing minimal projection on this list, this is probably the most that I'm doing it. But at the same time,
Sure.
like you said, if I was fully projecting, I'd have him in my top 10. He's 6'3", 210 pounds with a 4.3 40-yard dash. I mean, he's going to have so many more opportunities next season, and I saw enough from him last season in such a horrible situation that I felt comfortable. Now, Malik Neighbors was not in a great situation as
No,
well,
no, he
but
wasn't.
I just I'm not just going to now these guys are right there, obviously 14 and
Yeah.
12. At like you said, at this point, everything for the most part is relatively interchangeable. I just edged it out purely on the subjective opinion that I think Brian Thomas Jr. is better.
Well, and it's one of those things where it's like, I kind of do too. It's just, I
Fair,
think
yeah.
that Malik Neighbors just had more time to prove his success, and it's minimal right now. Um, next, let's think. We had a little bit of a difference in Drake London. You had
Yeah.
BTJ and Devontae Adams above him. I don't really know if that's
I'm
worth
actually
talking
a
about,
little
but
surprised. Well, I'm a little surprised that you had Drake London that high. I almost expected you to not have him on this list because separating this discussion from you and myself for a moment, if there are any people listening who are fantasy football fans and not actual football fans, it might shock you that Drake London is actually really, really good at football. Because I feel like because the Falcons offense has struggled so much that these players get unnecessary amounts of hate for being in poor situations. Drake London is 6'4", 210, and sure-handed as can be with an incredible catch radius. He had basically 1,300 yards and 75 yards per game with a horrifying Kirk Cousins and a rookie Michael Penix throwing him the ball. The guy is great. That's all there is to
yeah,
be
and
said.
if you look at it, so like last year, he was thrown on 37% of his routes with at least 34% in all three games where Michael Penix was the starter. And that's like a stark increase compared to when Kirk Cousins was the starter. And so the other thing too is that he has an average depth of target at 11 yards, which is the second highest among
That's
wide
crazy.
receivers within the slot. On top of that, his cumulative win above replacement, which, if you don't understand, basically what that stat is looking at is it's providing context to his win percentage. So it's saying that what percent of the time, or how much better does Drake London than compared to a average receiver within a specific play, and then it takes that cumulatively among all of his catches and spits out a number. His was 1.21 over the past 3 seasons, which ranks top 12. So from that perspective, when you provide context to a lot of his stats, it becomes clear that this guy should be in the top 15, if not even higher. And I wouldn't be surprised if next year he also ekes his way into the top 10 with Michael Penix throwing him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, if Michael Penix loves him that much, which I didn't even, I knew his production increased, but I wouldn't have known to that level, then yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Top 10 is entirely on the table. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think the last guy, do you want to talk
I
about
really
Garrett
think the
Wilson a
only
little
other
bit?
guy here to talk about, I mean, literally is Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, yeah. So the reason that I have him all the way at 15 is that, um, his production has not been as great. And because I'm not just box score watching, it's not just box score watching to say that relative to his talent, he should have somewhat better production. But the reason why he's here and absolutely deserves to be here at the bare minimum is that he's one of the best separators in the league. He'll
Yes.
have some monster seasons at some point. I mean, when you're reading other players and GMs talking about this guy, it purely in terms of this aspect of their games, the separation, they say that it's like Justin Jefferson 1 and Garrett Wilson 2.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And the reason I had Garrett Wilson this high, so the first one is when I was comparing some of the guys below him, specifically T and Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors, I heavily was influenced by the fact that one, he has a larger sample size. I just don't think that they've done enough necessarily to overtake him, and they haven't really had the opportunity. But the second thing is that so he's had 3 consecutive seasons with 1,000 yards, and if you it's really valuable to me how he can consistently get that production given the the situations that he's been in. Just completely dysfunctional since the start of his career, and yet he's still able to find a way to get 1,000 yards. And so, on top of the advanced stats that look really good, it really is just as simple as that he is consistently in these bad situations been able to get 1,000 yards. Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors did that 1 year. They haven't done it 3 years, which Garrett Wilson has. And so that's why right now I have him above them. But again, it's really, really close. And I wouldn't be surprised if they overtake him in the next coming seasons.
Entirely fair.
Okay, you ready to move on to the top 10?
I am excited, yes.
Okay, so first up, you go first, Jonathan.
Yeah, so at my number 10, I have Mike Evans. At number 9, Nico Collins. At number 8, Terry McLaurin. Number 7, Tyreek Hill. And number 6, Puka Nakua.
Okay, so for me, my top 10, 10 I have Tyreek Hill, 9 I have Terry McLaurin, 8 I have Mike Evans, 7 CD Lamb, 6 Amon-Ra St. Brown. So there's some bigger differences here.
I'm trying to pick what jumps out to me the most. It's either you having Tyreek Hill all the way at 10 or CD Lamb all the way at 7.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead and give me your Tyreek Hill take.
Yeah, so this really is just as simple as last year he had a really bad year. And so obviously that's not the most important thing, but it was enough of a tiebreaker for me. Last year his overall PFF grade was 72.7 and his receiving grade was 77.3. So just not really good. He had 81 receptions, 959 yards and 6 touchdowns. And again, this really is based on last year. This could change with one good season. Last year, he just was not able to replicate the success that he had in years past. And yes, his situation wasn't as good as it was, but a lot of these guys have been resilient through terrible situations. And so, the moment that that happens, he kind of drops off. I think that he's lost a step in his age just a little bit. I I think that he's going to have a better 2025 season. But if we're just looking right now, that was kind of the tiebreaker for me compared to the other guys that are ahead of him.
Okay. So I think the first thing, and it's your criteria. I obviously approach it with slightly different, where I wouldn't weigh last season entirely as much as you, purely because yes, it was objectively just a poor season by him all around, but we're also 2 seasons removed from him having one of the greatest wide receiver seasons of all time. So I think that I've he has enough benefit of the doubt. Even if he's lost a step, he's still basically, in terms of guys at the very top who also have the other capacities as a wide receiver, the fastest wide receiver in the NFL. And so, what I put down in my notes was as simple as this. Going into next season, not this season, but next season, he could be back in the top 5 for me, or he could be out of the top 10. This was sort of my compromise. If we basically, because I guess the way that I would frame it as, if Tyreek Hill, say, missed last season with injury and didn't have the previous season that he did, he'd probably be at least top five, if not, 3 or 4. And I know that's a weird hypothetical because that's not actually what happened. I just mean it in terms of one season wasn't enough for me to drop him all the way that far, because I think
Sure.
this is still a guy that has 1 to 2 more years potentially of being a top, 5, 6, 7 wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah. And so real quick, here's my rebuttal to that. So the first thing is that the reason why it's impactful to me is because if I were to predict how Tyreek Hill would fall off, it would be very quickly. Meaning
That's
it's
fair.
gonna be a situation where one season he's top five, the next season he's now bottom, at the bottom half of the top 10 list. He is the opposite. Remember how I said that Devontae Adams isn't necessarily relying upon his physical skill set in order to get open. Tyreek Hill is entirely relying on his physical skill set in order to get open. And obviously, there are other things related to why he's so successful. His ability to track the ball is just incredible. Surprising catch radius for his size, but still this is kind of in line with how I would expect his career to drop off. Where 2 seasons, he's arguably the best wide receiver within the league. And then all of a sudden, he, you know, according to PFF grades, is the 28th best receiving wide receiver in the league and the 43rd overall. And so, in my mind, this isn't one of those things where I think that this drop off was like unpredictable and he's going to have this bounce back year back to his prime. Like in my mind, this is following the course of what I would expect a wide receiver with his skill set to follow, where it just drops off,
Entirely
drops off,
fair.
drops off. And then all of a sudden we're looking at it and it's like he just can't keep up.
I don't even disagree with anything you said. I just think it's not yet. I think he had a weird, for a multitude of reasons, slump. And then I think he will bounce back for a couple and then probably do what you just said. So I don't
Okay.
disagree with your analysis, because you are entirely right. His skill set is something that will be the most likely of any skill set to have as a wide receiver decline with age. I just don't think he's at that point right now. It's as simple as
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and have our Mike Evans discussion, because I have him at my number 10, you have him at your number 8. I'll go ahead and preface this by well, let me just give you my analysis of Mike Evans. Being for me, being number 10 on this list is the most Mike Evans thing ever. He's not elite, but he just does enough to stay in the conversation. Um, I'm one of the maybe 2 people in the world, it's myself and Marshawn Lattimore, who does not believe that Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Marshawn Lattimore hates that man.
Um, I think that, and I know this is such an unpopular opinion because Mike Evans seems like such a great guy, but when
Mhm.
I think of a Hall of Fame career, I think that it's not, you were consistently really good for a long time. To me, the Hall of Fame is when you were at your peak, you were one of the best at your position in the NFL, and pick out the Mike Evans season, even at his most elite and in his prime, that he was a top 3, even 5 wide receiver in the NFL. I don't think that that exists for uh, potentially even one season, much less like a 3 to 5 season stretch. And so I know I've said all of this negative stuff, and yet he's a top 10 player on my list because he is. That's his skill set. He's consistently great. If he reaches it this season, he's going to break Jerry Rice's record for most 1,000 yards seasons consecutively. The problem is that record is going to, because Mike Evans is about to break it, going to get turned into some huge thing. It's actually not that impressive when you're at the upper echelons of a wide receiver to get 1,000 yards. The
Yeah.
reason that
Well,
that
now
streak,
now it is.
Now, yes, fair. The reason that that streak is so impressive is really just health. That's all that it is. Because it's not like Mike Evans has been putting up 15 to 1800 yard seasons. He's been, for the majority of his time, getting, 1,000 to 1,200. I think he only has two 1,500 yard seasons on his resume.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree with that logic. I don't really, to be honest, I don't really care about the conversation that much, but I could see why people would
Fair.
be mad at you for saying that. Um, I would have to look more into it, but that criteria of being like dominant at your position for an era or for more than just like one season potentially, that makes sense to me. But in terms of like this list, the reason why I had him at eighth is really just because of that consistency. I think he is severely underrated. He's an incredible blocker. Last year, he missed time with a hamstring injury, and at 30 years old, he still topped 1,000 receiving yards. He also got 11 touchdowns, which was fourth in the league. Um, you know, I just think that and also his PFF grade, um, was 89, which was fourth overall within the league. And so from that perspective, I think you just put everything together. He's an incredible red zone threat, potentially one of the best within the league as a wide receiver.
That's
He
fair.
can consistently get those 1,000 yards. He's an incredible blocker, which, I don't know how important that is for this discussion, but it's still something of note. He's great at blocking. I like him a lot. When I watch him play, I just think like, wow, that is a top
Oh,
end
yeah.
wide receiver in the league. And so he fell at eight for me.
Entirely fair. And Mike Evans, his height of making him a red zone threat is legitimately super fun to watch. It just, there's not enough physically within his tool bag beyond that for me to put him ahead of some of these other guys. Really, the only other one that I could see, and now obviously he's not right next to him on my list, he's two ahead of him. But let's have the Terry McLaurin discussion, because having Terry
Okay.
McLaurin in the top 10 for both of us might be not controversial, but there's a good chunk of the population who, if they ranked their top 10 wide receivers, would not have Terry McLaurin there.
Yeah. So for me, the biggest defining factor is just his ability to catch the ball when it's contested. I think that was one of the most important things for me. That and run after the catch when I looked at kind of separating these guys when it was really close. Over since 2020, Terry McLaurin leads the league with 89 contested catches. Um,
Yeah.
on on top of that, his cumulative win rate above replacement was 1.31, which over the past three seasons, which ranks seventh among wide receivers. He had 15 receptions, or sorry, 82 receptions last year, 1,096 yards and 13 touchdowns, which was second within the NFL. When I look at the stats, when I look at watching him play, I don't see how you could have him outside of the top 10.
Yeah, I actually have pretty much the exact same thing. Uh, Contested catches, deep balls, shockingly
Mhm.
high WAR. I mean, it's one of those things where, now, obviously, this is relative. He's an incredible athlete, of course. Relative to this discussion, he might be the least physically gifted of anyone, not just in our top 10, but top 15.
Maybe.
It's it. And so I think that this is kind of, uh, dare I say that he's the Baker Mayfield of wide receivers, where
Maybe.
he just kind of has an intangible element to him where I mean, and you see it literally in the manifestation of contested catches where he
Yeah.
just wants the ball more than the other guy. And so when it comes down to that, when you see the production put all together, and the fact that um it's worth noting in this conversation that for the entirety of his career up until last season, he'd been languishing away in a miserable situation in Washington. Now, as
Yeah.
soon as he gets a legitimate quarterback throwing him the ball, he suddenly has far more name recognition. I'm almost sad for him that it's coming this late in his career because he probably only has a couple more seasons of his true prime. I believe he's already 30 years old. If not, he'll be reaching that this season. But yeah, Terry McLaurin, a top 10 wide receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so then the next biggest thing that sticks out for us is obviously that I have CD Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown in this tier and you don't. Do you want to talk about them now or do you want to wait until we see where you have them?
We can go ahead. Uh, you, I'll go ahead and say that not only were those guys both within my top five, they were both within my top four. So I am quite high. Why don't you go ahead? Let's save Amon-Ra St. Brown. Give me your CD Lamb
Okay.
take.
Okay. CeeDee Lamb, this is kind of similar to Tyreek Hill. It's different, but it's similar. So the reason why I had him at 7 is because of his 2024 season. His production dipped significantly as soon as Dak Prescott was sidelined. His overall grade last year was a 77.3 and a 79.9 receiving grade. He had 101 receptions, 1,100 or 1,200 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And so while I think over the last few seasons he's kind of solidified himself as one of, if not the best slot receivers within the NFL. Amon-Ra St. Brown has kind of snatched his chain last year. And I just think that it's impactful to me that as soon as his quarterback situation switches up, he's no longer to have, it's not like his production dipped a little bit as you would expect. Like it dipped significantly in terms of his ability to get open, his
Can I
ability to catch
interject
the
really
ball. And so
quickly?
that was impactful to me. Yeah.
Um, I mean, it is worth noting that he was significantly hampered with his shoulder injury last year.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a good
I think,
point. The other thing,
y- well, I'll go ahead and just say really quickly, I won't give my full CD Lamb analysis. I just think it's funny because we kind of are coming at it from the opposite perspective. Last season actually gave me the edge to push CD Lamb into my top five.
okay, interesting. Because I would have had CD Lamb 4 if last
Okay.
season didn't happen. He would have clearly been the
Okay.
fourth best wide receiver in the NFL to me. The other thing too that obviously there's an element to this where it's like I just think that the guys ahead of him right now are better. Like where it's
That's
less
fair.
about him and it's just kind of like where he fell. Um, like for example, Nico Collins, who you have at number 9. I'll talk about him whenever we get into our top 5, but I do have him within the top 5. Like he's not off my list. And so like there are other guys like Puka Nacua is in my top 5. Um, that I just think that they're better than him right now.
Okay. Well, let's round out this discussion because clearly we've both got some guys that were in our top five that the other didn't have. I will talk
Yes.
about Nico Collins because I think that might be the biggest difference, me having him all the way at 9 and you, as you said, having him within your top
Yes.
five. Don't know where yet. I have Nico Collins here because I put on my notes directly. I'll read it quote for word for word. This is the last season he'll be this low on my list, and pretty
Mhm.
easily could be higher if you caught me at the right time. Uh, it's really more so that, and I know this conflicts a little bit because we both had guys with one rookie season in our top 15. um, I just need to see a little bit more to put him ahead of other guys. I, as of right now, with really the only one being if you wanted to debate him and Terry McLaurin, I'm open to that. But every single guy I have ahead of him right now, it's kind of like you had with CD Lamb, where it's just like, if I needed them for this NFL season alone, I would probably put them ahead of him. That will not remain the case for much longer. It's as simple as
Yeah, and
that. It's
I just respectfully disagree. Like I definitely would
yeah,
rather have him.
okay, that's fair. No, that's entirely fair. So let's go ahead. Obviously, the people that are on this list we didn't talk about are both our number 6 guys. I had Puka
Yeah.
Nacua. You had Amon-Ra St. Brown. let's go ahead and see how that shapes out in our top 5 wide receivers.
Absolutely. So at number 5, I have Puka Nacua. 4, I have Nico Collins. 3, AJ Brown. 2, Jamar Chase. 1, Justin Jefferson.
Yep. So I had number 5, AJ Brown, number 4, CD Lamb, number 3, Amon-Ra St. Brown, number 2, Jamar Chase, and number 1, Justin Jefferson. Why don't we go ahead and switch it up a bit? Because as funny as it is, our only 2 rankings agreements that I've been keeping track of are our number 1s and number 2s, both
Yeah.
completely lining up. If you want to take your guy, Jamar, go ahead.
Yeah. So obviously last year influenced this a decent amount and really pushed him into that top two. Last year he had an 85.8 receiving grade, 127 receptions, 1,700 yards, 17 touchdowns. He was the Triple Crown winner. And the thing that really sets him apart and why he's the second best wide receiver within the NFL is his run after the catch. He looks like oil, and the people trying to tackle him look like water. Where it's one of those things where it's just he gets low to the ground and he has such a strong base where it just seems like people are immune to putting him on the ground when he's running the ball. And he'll have these plays where, he catches the ball and there's guys around him and inexplicably he just gets through it. And it's like, well, how did he do that? His top end speed is amazing. His acceleration is amazing. He obviously has that connection with Joe Burrow. People might use that kind of against him within these lists to say like, oh, like he has this guy, he has this great quarterback, yada yada yada. So whatever. In my mind, you really can only judge people based on how they produce, and the way that he produces is exceptional. And last year was the best. And so in my mind, that clearly leads him to being the number 2 wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, except I wanted to note you said uh this last season solidified him being top 2, and it definitely solidified it. For me, even if he had an average Jamar Chase season, he's been my number 2 guy starting definitively at the start of last season. To
No,
me,
yeah,
it's
I
like
agree.
and I know you're obviously you're a Jamar Chase guy. My point is to say that it's kind of a 1A, 1B situation with him and Justin
Yeah.
Jefferson, who I'll talk about in just a moment. And the only edge that I give Justin Jefferson, and it's just barely enough, I mean, we're talking about the top 2 guys in the league, is that I've seen Justin Jefferson do it with a multitude of quarterback situations. That's it. That's the only reason that I give Justin Jefferson the edge. Who is both our number 1s, I'll go ahead and talk about. Um, he's the greatest separator in the league. Through 5 seasons, he currently holds the NFL record for the most receiving yards per game at 97. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he averages nearly 100 yards per game across his career. That's incredible. Uh, the one thing I'll note about him, and it's the other thing where I've almost never seen a wide receiver in my time watching football who does it like this. He moves like a puppet on strings. And what I mean by that is the things that he can do and the way that he can contort his body looks like it defies the laws of physics. It looks like someone has him on strings and is like yanking him around and providing some outside source of momentum that allows him to move the way that he does. It doesn't make
Absolutely. That's
sense.
such a good way of putting it.
It doesn't make sense. I mean, literally, and the way that he flails his arms too when he spins around someone, or like almost swim. Goodness. That was a loud noise. Almost swim moves over someone. It's truly special to watch, is the best way to put it.
Absolutely. And to add fuel to that fire, so since Justin Jefferson was drafted in 2020, he leads the league with 93.6 again receiving grade. He also ranks first in receiving yards per game at 97 and yards per route run at 2.64. He ranks in the 94th percentile or better in yards per route run over the last 3 seasons, out wide in the slot against press, without press against man defense, against zone defense, against single coverage, against double coverage, and if he's open or not. Over the past 3 seasons, he ranks second among all wideouts in cumulative WAR and holds the second best per season WAR average. He's literally the pretty much the best at every single aspect that you could, or every single aspect and context that you could put him in. So it's one of those things where it's like you say 1A and 1B, and this isn't to take away from Jamar, but I'm actually a little bit more extreme in my views where I think that
That's
Justin
fair.
Jefferson could end up being the greatest wide receiver of all time. When you look at his numbers, if he can have the longevity of some of the other guys, not to the same extent as like a Jerry Rice, for example, but when you look at the advanced metrics and look at how he's able to win and the different contexts he's able to win, he's not a skill set guy. Obviously, he has skill sets that jump out at you, but he is the most complete and well-rounded wide receiver that we've seen in the last like 10, 15 years. It's crazy.
You're entirely right. And I was really more so, I wasn't expecting this. I was thinking that maybe you would be pushing more so for a Jamar Chase, but I really actually agree with you. I think I will say I do
I
have
mean,
to push
it's
back
like
on the Jerry Rice
the
thing.
facts are undeniable.
Yes,
What do you mean?
to me, it's just because I hold Jerry Rice in so much esteem that I legitimately think that Jerry Rice could be the GOAT. I'm not talking about the GOAT wide receiver. I think Jerry
Yeah, I
Rice
agree with you.
is
No, yeah.
is probably
Yeah, maybe that
could
was a bit
easily
of an
be the
over
football GOAT.
exaggeration.
No, but I get these are
Yeah.
conversations that Justin Jefferson has earned being in. I just want
Yes.
to provide some context for people about how good Jerry Rice is.
Yeah, he's incredible. That would imply some growth from Justin Jefferson that is
Yes.
like that you can't predict. I'm just saying that he's like there's not a lot of guys that could even like I can say that and be somewhat serious.
Yeah, he's probably
And that hasn't
he's the
happened.
it's the best way I think to put it would be that since Jerry Rice's career ended, Justin Jefferson might be the only person who has had a start to a career that means there's a path, not even a
Yes.
chance or like not like oh there's a decent chance or oh he's got a real fighting chance, like just him being in the conversation is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So some other guys we can talk about. Let me get my stuff off about Nico Collins.
Okay.
Let's talk
Okay.
about Nico Collins. So last year, Nico Collins was the second highest graded overall wide receiver with a 91.6 grade and a 91.6 receiving grade. He had just over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns, but he just really, really carried the team. And his combination of size, speed, and route running, he's a true number one option over the past 2 seasons. And his 95.3 receiving grade against single coverage ranks second only to AJ Brown. And I think that's why I place him so highly on my list. I think that it's really impactful to understand or a really great way of deciding how good a wide receiver truly is by understanding how well they do within man coverage. And that is really impactful to me when I'm grading him. That's kind of why I have AJ Brown as third on this list. Because these are the types of guys, these are the number one overall options. They are getting the best corner on the opposing team week in and week out. And the fact that he is the second highest grade among all wide receivers within the NFL against man coverage, it matters to me, and that puts him number 4 on my list.
Yeah, like I said, I when I talked about Nico Collins, I was probably being somewhat disrespectful, and he's one of the guys on my list to where this time next year it would not surprise me whatsoever if he's within my top 5 as well. So
No,
I
yeah,
can't
I think
really.
you were completely being disrespectful. Like, I think he's clearly in the top 5, to be honest.
Okay, okay. All right, that's fair. I really like the guys ahead of him, and I'll go ahead and do the same thing with my guy who you didn't have within your top 5, CD Lamb.
Okay.
Well, also it'd be the same for Amon-Ra St. Brown, but let me start by talking about CD Lamb. Uh you said that last year the drop off knocked him out of your top five. For me, CeeDee Lamb fighting through his shoulder injury last season to try and will the Cowboys to victory in a doomed season legitimately made him one of my favorite players in the NFL. He's a 6'2 dog who can catch just about anything, and he plays to his very limit. I mean, he's catching balls, touchdowns, and falling onto his shoulder, and he's like in agony, writhing on the ground, doing whatever it takes. I just think that this guy is someone who, to me personally, there's no way in a draft of wide receivers we would get outside of the first five picks and not have him be there. I just I just really love CeeDee Lamb. That's all there is to say.
Yeah, I definitely think that if I were to redo this, I probably would have him higher. I don't know who I would switch up. But don't be surprised if like week 1 of the 2025-2026 season, I'm like, all right, he's back.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
that's
it's one of
fair.
those
Yeah.
things where there's just so much going into this and so many different tiebreakers that it's like you really just picking at straws. And even though the difference looks big on the list, it's as small as it can be, right? Like where it's just these little things that are making the difference between, number 3 and number 7.
Yeah. And let me go ahead and be clear, and I'll use this as a segue into my Amon-Ra St. Brown discussion, because it's the same thing where I believe you had him at number 6, I have him at number 3. And I have this in my notes. I really struggled with number 3 through number 6. uh
Hmm.
it really, you could put them in just about any order, and if I looked at the list I'd be like, yeah, that seems about right, with the exception of maybe Puka. I definitely wouldn't have Puka Nakua as high as 3. I have him at my
Yeah.
6. um well, for Amon-Ra St. Brown, really the one thing that I think detracts from him in the advanced statistics is his really low depth of target, which kind of
Yeah.
suggests that he benefits a lot from scheme. But to me, you just can't use that to deny the production and the raw physical ability. I was actually really surprised when I was going through to Pro Football Focus and seeing that he's only 6 feet tall, because he plays like he's 6'2", 6'3". He does not. I mean, the way that he can get up and grab certain balls, or his wingspan, especially when, he's running a slot route and a ball's ahead of him or behind him and he has to make a play to grab it because, Jared Goff's throwing him the football. Uh, um, that being said, I just think that he has done enough over these last couple of seasons to where, um, I really, I don't think that he would deserve, certainly, to be any lower than number 5, in my opinion. I'm a little surprised that you didn't have him in your top 5. Like you said, I know he's right there, but I just think he's physically gifted enough to be where he's at on my list.
Yeah, so for me, the reason why I had him again, eh, most of the time when it's like I put Amon-Ra St. Brown at 6, it's because of the guys ahead of him, where it's like these are the guys that I do think are just better right now. Looking at him specifically though, I kind of used the scheme not against him, but I did factor that into my ranking. Like last year, for example, he had 15 or 115 receptions, which was the second most in the league. And you talked about depth of target. That was also on my notes. And one thing to really consider with Amon-Ra St. Brown is that I'm not going to say that he's schemed open a lot, and this isn't to take away from him, but I just think that when you play within a scheme like he did, a lot of the situations in which he was open, a lot of people could have also got open, if that makes sense.
That's fair.
Um, that being said,
Would it
his
be fair to
WAR,
I will say, and I think this is fair, even though it's weird because I have him in my top 3, this is a prove it year for him without Ben Johnson.
Yeah, a little bit. Absolutely. Yeah, like, and I will say too, like his WAR is actually the highest in the league last year. So
I
like
didn't even
that
know that.
does
Wow.
help. Yeah, so like clearly like he's above average, right? And I'm not going to take away that from him. And again, like it's kind of like you said with Nico Collins, you could ask me in a different day. When I came into creating this list, I put him 3. Like that was my initial reaction, was to put him
Hmm.
3 before I really did a deep dive and looked at the film and different things like that. He's a dynamic blocker, he's a difference maker. He overperforms given his context, but I just think that he still hasn't really had the same amount of opportunities as other wide receivers because of the situation that he's in. And so it's one of those things where it's like, on one note, you could say he look how productive he is without that opportunity. Like you have to put him higher. I kind of went the other route where it's like he still has to show me something before I can say that he's above these other guys. I think he'll get to that point, and I think that next year our lists are going to be very different.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah,
And
yeah, of
I think that
course.
this is another example of that being the case.
Why don't you go ahead? Well, we've got two guys left to talk about. Let's go ahead and hear your case for Puka Nakua being a top 5 wide receiver.
Yeah, so last year he led the league with the highest overall grade at wide receiver position with 92.8 and the first overall receiving grade with 93. He had 79 receptions, 990 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And obviously last year he was injured a good portion of the season, which is why his production was down. The truth is that he just gets open, and it's kind of inexplicable. He's not the biggest, he's not the fastest guy, but he just is really difficult to cover. Um, he ended the season with the highest receiving grade. And in the 2 year total, he has nearly 3,000 receiving yards. He averages 0.216 receptions per route and zero point 0.3 targets per route over the last 2 seasons, which both rank the best among wide receivers. His 7.1% target rate last season was the highest among all wide receivers with at least 75 routes run in, and the highest within the last 19 years. His 3.56 yards per route run ranks third best behind Steve Smith in 2008 and Tyreek Hill in 2023. So it really is as simple as, I did not expect this. He probably would have been 6 or 7 for me. And then I looked at the stats and I looked at the numbers and I watched the tape and I was like, it's kind of undeniable that he's out of the top 10 for me.
Okay. Well, and to clarify, even though it's the difference between appearing on this list and not appearing on this list, I had him at my number 6. So it's
Yeah,
only a
like
one
there's not a big difference here.
it's a one spot difference. Really, the only thing I have, and the only thing I have on my notes to explain it, is that every single guy I have above him, I just think is more physically gifted than him.
Yeah,
That's the
that's okay.
which I don't even think you would disagree with. I think he just did
No, oh,
enough.
absolutely not.
I mean, the difference is because you had Amon-Ra St. Brown at your 6, so that's really the only difference there in terms of just edging that one guy out. That's all it is. Puka Nakua is awesome, and if he has another season like he did, removing the injuries from the context, then yeah, he probably sneaks his way into my top 5. I do just value, because at the end of the day, we're, playing a physical sport, the physical traits of the other guys above him, but it's a one
Yeah,
spot difference. So
absolutely.
I'll go ahead and talk
Okay,
about AJ
last
Brown.
AJ Brown. Yeah.
So I have him at my 5. You have him all the way in your top 3. What I have to say about AJ Brown is that I don't know what to do with him, because I think some people immensely overrate him and put him into Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase tier conversations. But I also think some people really underrate him because, unfortunately for him, and he's expressed this publicly many a time, he's in a scheme that doesn't give him a lot of opportunities. I'm not saying that just because the box scores are lower doesn't mean he's one of the best. It's just that I haven't seen him targeted by an elite arm, and the guys that are above him, I've also seen not targeted by an elite arm, with the exception of Jamar Chase. But Jamar Chase does so much more than AJ Brown that I can't I can't sneak him into my top 4, top 3. And again, as we've been saying over and over again, he's my number 5 player. He's a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
I just can't sneak him above a few of those guys.
Yeah. So for me, AJ Brown made it to the top three. First off, to clarify, in my mind, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson are in a tier of their own. In
Yes.
fact, it might be as Justin Jefferson might be in his tier of his own, and then there's another tier with Jamar Chase, and then there's the rest of the top five guys. AJ Brown last year, his overall grade was 90.9, which ranked third within the NFL. Obviously, his production was down a little bit, but the Eagles pass the ball like less than everyone in the league. He dominates against single coverage. He does lead the league with an overall passing grade against catching or wide receiver grade against single coverage. For me, the tiebreaker and why I had him third was, it's kind of funny because it's like the inverse of Puka Nacua, where I think he's the most physically gifted among all wide receivers within the NFL. And so when you're talking about like grasping at hairs with these guys, like that matters to me. And then also the single coverage stat is really impactful to me. And I think that the reason why he's so good against man coverage is because he's somehow both bigger, stronger, and faster than every corner he goes against. And so that combination in my mind just makes him a top 3 wide receiver.
Yeah. Well, we did it. We ranked our top
We
15
did.
wide receivers, and we
We
only
did.
had two guys, myself one and yourself one, who were not on the other person's list. So I believe if I was keeping track, the actual biggest difference in our grades was me having Devontae Adams all the way at 11 and you not having him on the list. That was our biggest
Yeah.
disagreement.
Which I would rank him at 16. So another big difference would be the Nico Collins.
The
Nico
Nico
Collins
Collins
for
ones
me
was
being at
also
4.
a quite
That
large
was a big
gap,
one.
and I am feeling worse and worse about that by the minute.
I'm
But
feeling bad about CD Lamb.
you
I
should.
like I am kind of feeling bad about ranking him so low.
Well, but what I mean, again, you had him at number 7, so I mean, we're
We're
picking
grasping
at
at straws,
straws.
but like
Yeah,
I could convince myself honestly to put him at like 4 and just move
that's what
everyone
I'm
back.
saying. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah, really, uh, yeah, no, there's nothing more to be said. We compiled uh, quality lists on both sides, and we both had slightly different criteria. So
Yes, true.
let's go ahead and move on to ranking our top 15 edge rushers.
Okay, let's do it. But first, a break from our sponsors. Just kidding, we don't have sponsors. Okay. Top 15, Jonathan, go.
Um, number 15, Abdul Carter. Number
All
14,
righty.
Danielle Hunter, Danielle Hunter. Goodness. I'm sorry, Danielle. Number 13, Khalil Mack. Number 12, Josh Allen, the good one. And number 11, Jonathan Grenard.
Okay, so my top 15, pretty similar. 15, I have Jonathan Grenard. 14, Brian Burns. 13, Hines Allen. 12, Alex Highsmith. And 11, Danielle Hunter.
Okay. Yeah.
So first off, just go crazy talking about Abdul Carter.
Well, what I have in my notes is I'm not even going crazy. I just have written down, yeah, I know, deal with it.
Fair enough.
I'm staking my, this is my uh, you know, intro, my first ever attempt, obviously same as you, is delving into sports media. And I feel like one of the staples of a sports media person or
Yeah.
anyone that, has a podcast is staking your claim in that one guy that you were just absolutely certain will be incredible. And that's what I'm doing with Abdul Carter. Without ever having seen him play a snap of NFL football, I am there telling you that this guy is going to be elite, and this will be the last season that he might be outside of the top 10.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's true.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, next, looking at some other differences. What sticks out to you, Jonathan?
I do think that you had Alex Highsmith on the list, and I did not have him. So give me your Alex Highsmith take.
Yeah, so last year he was injured, which kind of hindered his production, but he still was really productive. Had the 13th highest overall grade amongst edge rushers according to PFF. He had 9 sacks, 29 tackles, 63 pressures, and or actually no, I'm looking at the wrong guy. One second. Alex Highsmith. He had the 7th highest overall PFF grade, 6 sacks, 32 tackles, 48 pressures. This is kind of one of those situations where he's like, you just got to watch him. His impact cannot be understated. Last year, the Steelers had pretty much the best pass rush within the NFL. Like according to advanced metrics and looking at like PFF rankings. And he was a major part of that and a really under discussed part of that. When you watch him, he just gets off his block and he does it at a surprisingly like efficient and quick rate. And so for me, it really is just like I've seen him play a lot and I think he's really good. So I put him at number 12.
Yeah, and just as a note, because we our criteria is mostly the same as it was with the wide receivers, just with the different position. But I think you and I would both agree, at the very least, I would say that even more so than the wide receivers, like my 6 through 20, which we're not even doing 20, is
Yeah,
really interchangeable. I mean, this is edge
it
rushing.
really is. Yeah.
It, it's so difficult because there's so little uh box score analysis that you can do to
Yeah.
rank consistent production unless you're at the very top level where it's just consistently incredible seasons. And so I would have Alex Highsmith just outside of here, again, picking at straws. The
Yeah.
reason that I put Abdul Carter in and not Alex Highsmith is because, I'm a clown who just wanted to switch it up.
That sounds good. Fair enough, man.
So,
I like it.
no, let's go ahead and talk about Daniil Hunter. I have him at 14. You have him just outside of your top 10 at 11. I really think that the only thing that kept me from putting him higher is just really sort of age. I mean, he's a
Yeah.
consistent, great veteran guy. I just think that everyone who I have above him is, for the most part, um, has more runway, is, physically gifted. I mean, it's so hard when you're talking about this, but he's within my top 15. I don't have anything negative to say about Daniil Hunter.
Yeah. So for me, the biggest tiebreaker, like in my mind, it was like he's clearly within this tier. How do I rank them? One of the biggest things that I looked at was pass rush win rate. According to ESPN, he had a 26% pass rush win rate, which was first among all edge rushers within the NFL. That's why he was 11th for me.
That's fair. Yeah.
So that's really all
Uh,
there is to say. Like,
I think we both have guys here that, well, let me ask, do you have Khalil Mack on your list?
yeah, he's in the next tier.
Okay, so then we both have guys where I have Khalil Mack here. You have him within your top 10. You have Brian Burns at 14. I have him within my top 10. So why don't you
There
go
you
ahead
go.
and give me your Brian Burns take?
Yeah, everything you just said about Daniil Hunter, that's how I feel about Brian Burns. He's really, really
Okay.
great. He's getting up there in age. But I actually think that he's going to have a way better season this year with Abdul Carter on the line with him.
Okay. Yeah. I will go ahead and quickly talk about Khalil Mack because I'm sure you'll talk about him a little bit later. Um, I actually have written down that it is probably a little disrespectful to have him this low. I just
Yeah.
think that Edge takes a toll, and it's something where the age hasn't actually caught up with him yet, but I feel like it's relatively imminent, and it scared me a little of putting him ahead of some guys because I think there's
Yeah.
a world in which there's a serious drop off starting this year, and he could be outside of like not just a top 15, but like a top 20. And so
Yeah.
that it it's almost disrespectful to everything that he's done previously. That was the tiebreaker there. He's still very high on my list.
Yeah. And I'll talk about Khalil Mack, um, I guess after it seems like or when we get into the next year, the one thing I will say though is that I agree with your analysis. It's just that instead of kind of because like basically we say that we can look at how they are currently, but when they're so close, we kind of have to project in order to as like a tiebreaker sometimes. For me, my tiebreaker with Khalil Mack was his historic dominance, and that's kind of what elevated him higher. If you're using a tiebreaker of projecting a little bit into next season and that's the tiebreaker, like that's entirely fair. That's completely subjective.
Yeah. We're both in very much line with just a one spot difference. You have Josh Hines Allen at 13. I have him at 12. I will go ahead and give you my Josh Allen take, which is one, not only is he the good Josh Allen, but it's really sad to see him waste away in Jacksonville. He's probably the
Yeah.
most underrated guy on this list. I just
Yes.
really love everyone in front of him. That's the only reason I have him down at 12. Because to me, that is down in terms of how good he
Yeah.
is.
Well, and same. So like for me, it's one of those things where it's like the year before, like the 2023 season, he was incredible. I think he had 90 pressures, which is insane. Last year he had dropped down to 63. And so I took those two factors in my mind, kind of played with it a little bit, and it came out to 13th, to be honest with you.
It's as
Like
simple as that.
that was, yeah.
So you have
Okay.
Jonathan Grenard barely making your list. Why don't you go ahead and tell me that?
Yeah, so Jonathan Grenard, again, it's one of those things where it's just like I'm just looking at these guys and I think that they're just a little bit better than him. He was still incredible. So, it's funny because last year the Texans and the Vikings basically just traded, Daniil Hunter and Jonathan Grenard for each other. Daniil Hunter landed with the Texans, Grenard landed with the Vikings, and it was just incredibly beneficial for both sides and for both players. Um, Under Brian Flores' defense, he finished the year with a 20% pass rush run rate, which ranked 10th in the league, and he had 80 pressures, which is the thing that stands out. That was third within the league last year. Um, but on top, and he also had 11 sacks, 41 tackles, 7 assists. This really was just about the eye test for me, where it's like he clearly, when you look at the numbers, has to be top 15. But just like watching him, there's just guys that I think are kind of better. Um, that could switch up again, like week one of 2025. If I'm watching him and he's just dominating, it's like, okay, I guess he's higher
Yeah.
on the list.
This is, I would say, and we're not going to have some big fight over. I think this is probably the one where you and I so far have the most disagreement in terms of I'm
Yeah.
really high on Jonathan Grenard, and the only thing keeping him out of my top 10 is just that when you have a career year, the year that you join a Brian Flores system, some of the pieces add up where it's like you are really benefiting from a great scheme.
Yeah. True.
But
True.
it's worth noting that you said he had 80 pressures last season, which is obviously true. You said it was third most. But to add some context to that, the number one was 83. And so, I
Yes.
mean, like we're talking about
Well, and I believe that was tied between two guys. So it's really the
yes.
second highest.
Yeah, he was in terms of pressuring the quarterback, the highest
Yes.
tier of the NFL last year. And
Yes.
so uh, he's not as physically imposing as some of the other guys. But if you have that much production, I'm going to put you decently high on my list. That's all.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's fair. Okay. I don't know if there's any other guys we really need to talk about, so let's move
Nope.
on. Okay, so Going into my top 10, number 10, I have Will Anderson Jr., 9, I have Khalil Mack, 8, Max Crosby, 7, Jared Verse, and then 6, Aiden Hutchinson.
All right. I think we'll have a decent bit of
Yeah, we
agreement
will.
here.
All right, next.
So, our first perfect match, I have number 10, Will Anderson Jr., number 9, Brian Burns, number 8, Trey Hendrickson, number 7, Jared Verse, another perfect, and number 6, Max Crosby.
Mhm. So yeah, the first thing I want to say, well, no, I'll get to it whenever we talk about Trey Hendrickson. But uh, what sticks out to you the most? I think Max Crosby. It's only a two-spot difference, but that does seem a bit high to me.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead and give my Max Crosby take. One of this is just the bias of I hate the Raiders as a Chiefs fan, which means that a guy like Max Crosby scares me because he is a game
Yeah,
wrecker. Uh he had an injury hampered season last year, but it was nothing that really gave me that much pause. Prior to last season, this was a top 5 guy, in my opinion, for 3 straight
me too.
years. I had a really hard time back and forth between him and who I put at my 5, who we'll discuss when we get to it. But I think Max Crosby is right on the borderline of being top 5.
Sure. Yeah. It's a really small difference for me. I'm projecting a little bit with Jared Verse, and I'm assuming you have Aiden Hutchinson in the next tier, right?
Of course.
Okay, good. Thank God. So, for me, Max Crosby, it really was just like he kind of had a down season last year. And again, when I'm picking at hairs, when I'm looking at potential time breakers, that's kind of one that I looked at not significantly, but it was a major one that I kind of looked at between these different guys. Uh, Again, it's more about just the guys ahead of him. I think Aiden Hutchinson undoubtedly is above Max Crosby. And he's another guy that like I don't know if we want to have this conversation quite yet, just because we can talk about him when he gets in when we talk about your top 5. But Jared Verse, I am projecting a little bit, and that's why I have him above him. Where I think that my list, is going to switch up a lot, especially at the top, and Jared Verse is going to be higher. I think Max Crosby will be higher, and Aiden Hutchinson will definitely be higher.
Okay. Yeah. Um, let's go ahead and have our Jared Verse discussion because he's right there because you and I are both
Yeah,
projecting, but we also weren't really projecting that much because Jared Verse
no,
was just awesome last year.
yeah, he was dominant, especially against the run. The thing that stood out to me is just like his bull rush and his push pull was just incredible. Like the strength that he showed to be able to move these massive individuals in these offensive lines from either side of the ball was just incredible. He was the leader of that defensive line from year one, and he was the defensive rookie of the year for the reason.
Yeah. The note that I have on Jared Verse is that in terms purely of age combined with ability and health, I think the only guy as a GM that I would want as a franchise cornerstone more right now is Micah Parsons. And obviously
Maybe,
that's
yeah.
weird because I will have Aiden Hutchinson higher than him as well. But the Hutchinson injury does really scare me in terms of,
That's exactly why
I mean,
he's number
I,
6 on my
I mean, the
list.
man fully snapped his leg. Now, I
Yeah.
still hold him in high enough value that I still put him that high, but I'm with my Aiden Hutchinson pick, I'm not projecting. I'm basically ranking him purely off of where he was the moment before his leg snapped in half.
So for me with Aiden Hutchinson, I ranked him based on like I ranked him like if I didn't do that because if I did, he'd potentially be top 2 for me.
Yeah, fair.
If you look at how he was playing, he was the best edge rusher within the league before he snapped his leg. So uh, this is me compensating for that and showing and kind of saluting some guys ahead of him. Don't be surprised if Aiden Hutchinson picks up where he left off, where he's 1 or 2 on my list next year.
Okay, yeah.
because
I
that's how
think
high I am on him.
entirely fair, and I'm there with you. We will go ahead and save the Trey Hendrickson discussion until you get to him. I can tell that you feel disrespected by that, but I'll
Not
go.
really. It's
Yeah,
we can talk about it when we get there. You'll see.
my number 9 is Brian Burns, who I believe you had at your 14. So a
Yeah.
reasonably decent gap. Uh, in terms of inside my top 10 to for you just making it within your top 15. I have Brian Burns that high because maybe the numbers don't fully back it up, combined with playing the near entirety of his career with a dismal Carolina team and now the New York Giants. But he is a huge, fast man who I'm
Yes.
predicting to have a career year. I think that him finally getting some help on that. Really, from at any point in his career, from a guy who can legitimately be threatening enough to where you have to dedicate a portion of your scheme around him and not just Brian Burns. I mean, we've talked about this multiple times. The Giants' defensive pass rush is going to be incredible next season.
It is. It is.
And so I just personally like Brian Burns enough for him to sneak within my top 10. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, so for me with Brian Burns, like I said, it's just about age. And like this is one of those situations where I think next year he could have a career year. Ironically, his snaps might go down just because of Thibodeau and Abdul Carter. And just like it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of work that personnel group out. But yeah, I think that he's incredible. It's just, he just needs an opportunity. And I think next year he's going to get it.
Go ahead and round us out of our top 10 with Will Anderson.
Yeah, so Will Anderson, we both had him at 10. So we're kind of both on the same page there. Last year, Will Anderson, it kind of was a tale of two halves. Like the second half of the season, especially the playoffs, is when he really stepped up and kind of, in my mind, solidified him as a top 10 edge rusher within the league. He had 12 sacks last year, was seventh overall with his pass rush win rate. And he just really kicked it into high gear. With four of his five highest graded performances coming in week 12 or later, including both playoff games. And in my mind, that was just enough for him to be in the top 10. When I was watching him play, when I look at the tape and what he put on the field, I just compared that to the other guys and said, this is where he lands.
There we go. Fair enough. I have nothing much else to say there. I'm right in line with you.
Yeah. Okay. Are we ready to go into our top five?
Yes, I'm very excited.
All right, Jonathan. What's your, oh, 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 okay. What's your top five?
At number 5, Nick Bosa. At number 4, Aiden Hutchinson. And in my mind, the consensus number 3, 2, and 1, TJ Watt. Number 2, Micah Parsons. And number 1, Myles Garrett.
Yeah, so pretty similar for me. Number 5, I have Trey Hendrickson. 4, Nick Bosa. 3, Micah Parsons. 2, TJ Watt. 1, Myles Garrett.
Okay. Well, the immediate thing that jumps out to me outside of the Trey Hendrickson, you have him at 5, I had him at my 8, is we both obviously understand that Myles Garrett is the best in the league. And I'm
Yeah,
actually glad that we get to have the TJ Watt, Micah Parsons debate.
sure. Yeah. Do you want to just start with Trey Hendrickson though? Because it'll be
Yeah.
quick.
Yep. Let's go.
Okay. So for Trey Hendrickson, for me, part of this, like, I'll be honest, it was my bias. Like, I just think that he had a good enough last like 3 years for me to say, like, yeah, he's top five. Looking at it, so last year, obviously he led the league with sacks in 17 and a half, two forced fumbles, 83 pressures, which was tied for first with with Myles Garrett. And he had the second best pass rush win rate with a 24%. He led the NFL in sacks. He tied Myles Garrett for the most amount of pressures. It's the fourth consecutive season with 70 or more pressures. And last year he was just so dominant in my mind that he was top five. And on top of that, when you look at it, like when you look at the numbers over the past 3 seasons of like pressures and sacks, there's always three guys that are listed. It's always Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, and Trey Hendrickson. And so that's why I had Myles Garrett and TJ Watt first and Trey Hendrickson. I just think he deserves to be fifth at this point. And that's kind of one of those situations where it's like, for me, Aiden Hutchinson, I think is clearly a better talent, but last year, like like life happens. He broke his leg. He was going to have the most dominant season. He was gonna win Defensive Player of the Year if he kept it up. Unfortunately, that just didn't happen, and so I compensated for that by putting him at six. Really under with the understanding of next year he could be one on my list, and saying that Trey Hendrickson, he's getting up there in age. This is kind of like my salute to him.
Yeah, that's entirely fair. And I almost feel bad for having him all the way at eighth because Trey
Yeah, I
Hendrickson.
do think eight is kind of ridiculous.
That's
Like
fair.
that's
I
kind
was
of
like,
insane.
because I do want to give him his flowers. He's so incredible. Really, the only thing that I have in my notes, and I feel bad about it because yeah, like you're winning on me, maybe not having in my top five, but closer to like six or seven, is all of the guys that I have above him have more physical diversity and ability than him. Like
Yes.
Trey Hendrickson does one thing and he does it really well, and it's attack the quarterback. And
Yes.
and he definitely does it better than even some guys that I have ahead of him. I just think that there's some,
Without a doubt.
without a doubt, obviously.
Yeah. I
There's
mean,
just
he is the third, objectively, he is the third most productive pass rusher on this list over the last 3 seasons.
yes, and and that's why I do now feel a bit bad having him all the way down at eight. It's just that we're not pure. We are grading edge position players, not pass rushers specifically. And so I feel like the guys that I have ahead of him uh, are potentially more well-rounded within the position. But again, like I said, I do
Okay.
want to backtrack somewhat and say, if I could do it over again, I would almost certainly have him ahead of Jared Verse.
Well, right. Like, yeah, no, I think that's for sure. Cause you had him eight, right? And so you had Jared Verse, and then who was six for you again?
My six
Max Crosby.
was Max Crosby.
Yeah. Like, I just think that it's one of those things where it's like you don't want to just look at the box score or like look at the stat line and just like rank them according to stats, but that has to matter to an extent. So that's why he's not third or even first on my list.
Yeah,
That's why he's fifth. But also he's, had the most pressures compared to all those guys. He's had the most sacks. We're grading edge rushers. That's the most important skill set here. So in my
that's
mind, it's
fair.
like he kind of has to be in the top five, even if he isn't next year. Like,
My Max Crosby thing is kind of the inverse of your bias, where I'm like, I
yeah.
hate the Raiders, and so we play him so often that he scares me so much.
Sure.
So that's
That
where
might be
that's
why
coming
Alex
from.
Highsmith is on my top 15 too.
That's fair. Yeah, exactly. So
And why TJ Watt is number two.
we can go ahead and get I'll just quickly go over Myles Garrett because we can put
Okay.
this to bed. What is there to say? He's the youngest person to 100 sacks. He's the only player in NFL history to have 14 or more sacks in 4 straight years, and he is only more likely than not, if nothing happens, knock on wood, going to extend that streak. Beyond the sack, he leads the leagues in pressures, pass rush win rate, and pressure rate over the last like 4 years. He's number one, signed and notarized.
It's like Justin Jefferson. Like he just is. Like you look at everything, and he's also the most athletically gifted. Like his mix of strength and speed is unmatched. It just
Yes.
is. So
Yep.
yeah, it's unfortunate that he's had to play his career with the Browns.
So why don't you give me your TJ Watt take so we can have the TJ Watt versus Micah Parsons debate?
Sure. So TJ Watt, he is, in my mind, the most well-rounded pass rusher on this list, kind of to what you were talking about. He, even potentially more than Myles Garrett, is a true game rush or game crusher. Um, he last year, he had a 92.2 overall grade according to PFF, 12 sacks, 35 tackles. 53 pressures, and a pass rush win rate of 19%. This is the fifth time in 6 seasons he earned a grade of 90 or higher, and he also won the PFF Run Defender of the Year award last year. His run defensive grade was 91.4, which was first. This is my tiebreaker for Parsons, by the way. I even wrote that in my notes. My tiebreaker
Okay.
for Parsons is specifically his impact against the run. He also has a 3.2% negatively graded play rate, which is the lowest among all box defenders in the NFL. He's the type of guy that will consistently put pressure on the quarterback, and he will be able to attack you and I guess crush or take over the game in multiple ways, whether it's an interception, a strip fumble, a timely sack. In my mind, when I'm watching him, and maybe it is kind of like how you said about Max Crosby, where it's like I've just seen him play and destroy games against the Bengals, where it's like in my mind, he's undoubtedly number two.
Okay. So my thing about Micah Parsons is, and I want to preface this because it's almost unfair to the criteria because this is an edge criteria. But what I wanted to say is Micah Parsons is a Swiss Army knife who can play
Yes.
anywhere in the first two levels of the defense, but he's just so damn good at rushing the pass that he stays up front.
Yes.
And so, and that's why it's almost not even fair because it's not a criteria that I can rank TJ Watt in, because TJ Watt isn't asked to do that because that's not the position that he plays. But at the same time, on terms of the actual ability to rush the quarterback, Micah Parsons has a 31% pass rush win rate and 126 pressures since 2023, which leads the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
And so,
I wrote down on my notes that he passes the like eye test. Like when you watch him, like top three is the worst that I could give him. Like he
yes.
just is so dynamic with his pass rush, and he's on the quarterback like almost immediately.
Yeah, this is like, this is a depending on what side of the bed I wake up on type decision where it's
Yeah.
always going, and Myles Garrett is the bed. Like I'm always going to wake up on the bed of Myles Garrett, and it's just which side am I facing, TJ Watt or Micah Parsons for my number two.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we both agree with everything that each other has said. It's just the
Yeah.
difference of opinion between 2 and 3. That's all.
It kind of seems like that's how this whole entire episode has gone, where it's like we all agree that these are great players and these are their strengths, but like which is more important to the other person? Like
Except,
which do you value more?
I mean, with the exception of Devonte Adams, who you hate and think is the enemy of this show.
I don't. He's a friend of the show. But so
Thank you,
is T.
Devonte
Higgins.
Adams. I don't know about that. T. Higgins is an associate of this show.
He's a friend of mine, so you can suck it.
Why don't you go ahead and
Oh
tell
my
me
gosh.
about Nick Bosa?
Yeah. Nick Bosa is really good. Last year he had a down year, but he's still really good.
Is it debatable?
No. That's it. Like that's really
Yeah.
I could go. I have notes about like the advanced stats and stuff, but like I don't know why I'd waste everyone's time. Like he's cool. He's just really good.
Yeah, the only thing,
Defensive player of the year, Nick Bosa.
yeah, there's not much to say. I couldn't compile a list and not have Nick Bosa in the top 5. I do think,
Yeah, absolutely.
but it's also one of those things where, and obviously you don't even disagree. It's just we both have the weird thing with the Aiden Hutchinson injury, but removing that
Yeah.
from the equation, I don't think any of us would say that any of the people above Nick Bosa he's really in the conversation with right now. He's kind of,
Yeah.
Nick Bosa is sort of in the weird stopgap tier where
Yes.
he's below all of those guys ahead of him, but he's above everyone behind him, in my opinion.
Yeah. If I were to tier this out, I would put Myles Garrett in a tier of his own, then TJ Watt and Micah Parsons in one tier, and then Nick Bosa in a tier of his own.
Yeah, I would. And if it wasn't for the injury, Aiden Hutchinson
Yes,
would.
Aiden Hutchinson would be in the same tier with Nick Bosa.
Well, I would even put him with
Potentially
TJ
higher.
Watt and Micah Parsons.
Potentially
But
higher.
yeah.
Yeah, no, he might.
Can
You're
we
right.
just, bumped the mic. If we could have just quickly note on the Aiden Hutchinson thing, he had 72 pass rush wins
Yeah, you want me to
through
get into
his,
the numbers?
yeah, just real
I
quick.
have them because it was shocking to me.
He had 72 pass rush wins through the first 6 weeks of the season, and he didn't even finish game 6 because his leg snapped in half.
Yeah. Well, and also consider that he had a bye in week 5.
That's right. Oh my goodness.
So here we go. Last year, he led the NFL with the highest overall grade at 94.5 and the highest pass rush grade at 95. He had 8 sacks, in parentheses, I said, holy crap, 6 tackles, 5 assists, 1 forced fumble, 45 pressures. Hutchinson was on pace for an historic season. He had 72 pass rush wins, the most ever by a defensive player in PFF era, through the first 6 weeks of the season. He accomplished this feat with just 5 games, and Detroit had a bye in week 5. If he wasn't injured, this could have been the most dominant season we had ever seen, and I would have put him 1. That's where it's one of those things where it's like, this is not me putting him at number 6 is not taking away from him. It's more about just like saluting the other guys, like, hey, because of that injury, this potentially could be your last year in the top 5.
That's fair.
Like, move over, because if Aiden Hutchinson comes back, how the reports are kind of saying with this injury, like medicine has advanced a lot. Like, it's a tough injury, but he can recover from it. If he comes back like he played in 2024, we're talking about a guy who can compete with Myles Garrett. We really are. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, he had 8 sacks in 5 games.
I'm not even
8 sacks and
I don't even care
45
about,
pressures.
I don't
it's
care
just
about,
ridiculous.
Yeah, that's the thing that I care about. The 8 sacks, because sacks are a fickle stat. 45 pressures in 5 games, and one of them he didn't even finish, is insane.
It's like mind-boggling. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So yeah, like, this is not to disrespect Aiden Hutchinson. This is more of just like a nod to Nick Bosa and Trey Hendrickson, because there is this guy from Detroit who's coming for their positions.
Oh, that was our top 15 edge rushers.
Well, there's our list. I think it was perfect.
Yeah.
I think
mine was
way better,
more perfect.
That's besides the point.
No.
No, mine was way better. You're right if it wasn't for the fact that you were wrong.
Adam, please tell me, is it time for games?
It is. It's game time, ladies and gentlemen.
Huge.
We're going to play some games. The first game we're going to do is we're going to talk about some NFL nicknames throughout history. So I need to share my screen again. We're going to be looking at a good old tier list.
Okay.
So let's put these NFL nicknames into a tier list. So we have a couple guys. Let's just go in the order. Starting off, Marshawn Lynch or Beast Mode. How do you feel about Beast Mode?
Beast Mode. I might catch some flack for this, and it's more so just because I'm assuming what some of the other nicknames that I can see are going to be on this list. I'm going to put him at a solid B. It's so iconic, and so many,
I agree.
And so many people know Beast Mode, but just because it's well known doesn't necessarily make it the best.
Yeah, and I think that you do have to put these tiers together relative to the other guys. I don't imagine there's going to be much that are below B, so I think that he's on the bottom end of potentially like the greatest nicknames in history. So yeah, I think that's fair. Beast Mode is iconic. Shout out Marshawn Lynch.
Even though we're putting Beast Mode at a B, in terms of a nickname for a play or a moment, Beast Quake is one of the greatest of all time.
True. It is. It's pretty incredible. All right. Next up, another running back, Jerome Bettis, better known as the Bus.
I got to put this as an A. I mean, to be able to be so physically imposing that you are called the Bus, there's no way you're not one of the best of all time.
Exactly. No, yeah, there's not much to say. Just Jerome Bettis. Also, like, I don't know, it just fits, like Jerome the Bus Bettis. Like that strikes fear into your heart if you're an opposing
I mean,
linebacker.
imagine if you were like even playing like high school football, if you were lined up against a guy and you were like, that guy's nickname is the Bus. I'm
Yeah.
screwed.
Well, and also like think about it for the era too, because like we have some like I don't know, it just seems like some of the nicknames coming up are like more modern, where the bus is just like so physically imposing.
Yeah.
Like he's just gonna put his nose to the ground and he's just gonna run right through you. Like,
Yeah.
and at the end of it, you're gonna feel like you got hit by a bus.
Old
It's
old
so awesome.
school old school NFL nicknames are the best because they're not doing too much. They get right to the
No,
point.
it's just yeah, exactly. For example, next up on this list is Deion Sanders prime time.
Uh, to me, primetime, and I maybe this would be a controversial opinion. I got to put it in the S tier because it's so
Oh,
perfect for Dion
100%. I
because
don't
it
know if I
encapsulates
it
everything.
is. It's so
It
perfect.
encapsulates everything about his personality.
Yeah, absolutely. He was the center of the tension. He was who everyone talked about. He was the guy that would, get people to tune in to these primetime games. Like Deion Sanders is primetime. It perfectly fits his name. It's, I think, really cool for the position that he played. Yeah, I think that this got to be our first S tier nickname. So potentially another S tier guy that we're going to be talking about is Calvin Johnson or Megatron. Where do you think that this uh, sizes up on this list? Is it S tier? Am I presuming too much?
I don't think you're presuming too much. I think
There you go.
Megatron is one of those names where, even though I just said sometimes these new names are doing too much, and this nickname is a little intense, but Calvin Johnson in his prime was so good that Megatron fits. It doesn't
It
matter.
just fits so well.
Because
Yeah.
because I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, Marshawn Lynch was incredible, but Calvin Johnson really earned a nickname.
Here's the thing. Calvin Johnson legitimately changed how people and how teams approach the red zone.
Yeah.
Like they tried to copy it and no one, like the fade route in the red zone where you just or like the quick like corner fade route in the red zone is one of the worst
It's so terrible.
plays within the red zone.
So many
But
high
people
school
still do
interceptions
it
were
because
thrown.
it's terrible except for if you have Megatron catching the ball. And so they saw how successful he was at that, and the whole league copied him, and no one could do it. And even now, we have these teams trying to do it consistently. And like there are guys that can come close, but no one is even close to the success that Calvin Johnson has had with that route. Like he's earned the name Megatron.
Offensive uh high school offensive play callers have literally been fired for trying to emulate something that only Megatron was capable of doing.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Okay, we can move on to another potential S tier, Weapon X or Brian Dawkins.
Weapon
This is so
X
cool.
is so cool.
It's so awesome.
And I almost feel like we're oversaturating it by doing yet
I don't
another
care.
S tier. I
They're
don't
all
care.
so good.
To have
Weapon
a
X is so good.
Brian Dawkins had a nickname that was so great that they had a separate locker right next to his dedicated to Weapon X.
His alter ego. It was his alter ego, literally. Like it was like two different persons. Like it wasn't even a nickname. It was like two
You know
different
what
people.
you know what I'm
It
thinking
was
in my head right
crazy.
now is that one edit that uses like the mic'd up tape where he's just like banging his head. My time has come. My
Yes.
time has come. My time has come.
Dude, talk about like putting fear into opposing teams. Like imagine lining up across this guy and he's just pacing back and forth in the backfield and his nickname is Weapon X. Like
Just coming out of the smoke, crawling like a beast onto the field. It's incredible. The showmanship.
it it might be my favorite nickname of all time.
It
It's
very
so
well could be.
incredible. All right, next, kind of maybe going downhill a little bit, but we got Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. How do you feel about this nickname?
Well, I have some, sneaky love for Honey Badger because of his time on the
Yeah.
Chiefs. I would put Honey Badger. I mean, if Beast Mode is a better nickname than Honey Badger, which means I think I have to put Honey Badger at a C. And to be clear, for you to have done something or to have been cool enough to earn a nickname across your football career is cool in and of itself. It just doesn't compete with the other names on this list, and so I have to put it at C.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is, though, it is cool, though, just because, like, if you know anything about honey badgers, like, they're the type of, like, they're small, but they're just so ferocious in their attitude, or ferocious in their attitude. Like, there are clips of, like, honey badgers, like, basically intimidating lions for, like, food in the African savannah. So it's one of those things where it's like, I get it, and it's a really cool comparison, but it really is as simple as, like, who would you rather go against, the honey badger or Weapon X?
Or Megatron.
Or Megatron.
Honey,
Transformers.
why don't we have a battle between a honey badger and Megatron and see who comes out?
Megatron. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Next is another more modern one. Harrison Smith, or the Hitman.
I'm going to be honest, until we were putting this together, I had never heard of this before.
I haven't heard of that, but apparently that's his nickname.
And
it's kind of awesome.
No.
What?
I'm messing.
No, I think it has to at least be C.
It's a C. It's a C. I don't.
Okay. It's not as iconic, even though I think it's really cool.
That's a fun nickname to have, but I also have to. There has to be a comparable level of talent to the coolness of the nickname for the nickname to work.
True.
And so,
True.
like, Harrison Smith being called the Hitman versus Deion Sanders being called Prime Time, it's a little. There's a bit of a gap.
Yeah, true. Okay, speaking of iconic nicknames, we got to talk about William the Refrigerator Perry.
If there was a tier above S, this goes there.
This is generally we don't really care about the order, but this is, I think, the most iconic nickname in NFL history.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And to have come up with the nickname Refrigerator is, I believe, divine inspiration. To be struck in the moment and to see that man doing what he did and go, man, that looks like a refrigerator moving out there, is so brilliant and incredible that it will be remembered for the rest of time. The Refrigerator is number one on this list.
Absolutely. So then I think we once again made a perfect tier list.
We cooked.
We did. Alrighty, well that was fun, but we're gonna play another game and we're gonna do a draft. So last week we did a draft where we drafted the ultimate flag football team and specifically the offense. This week, let's draft the ultimate flag football defense using only active NFL players. So we did a snake draft last year. We're not going to do last week. We're not going to do a snake draft this time. Jonathan, you have the first overall pick. The positions are 1 rusher, 1 linebacker, 2 corners, and 2 safeties.
Because there's only one of them and I want to get it out of the way right now, because he's a guy who, if I have on my roster, becomes so versatile, Micah Parsons. And I'm putting him as my pass rusher
you ruin
for
everything
now.
Yeah. Dang it, dude. That was my pick. I was really hoping you would pick like a linebacker or something.
I'm not picking a linebacker number one.
So for me, well, I'm going to pick a linebacker number 2 because there's only one position. So I'm going to get the best, Fred Warner.
Oh, dang it. I was hoping I would psych you out of it.
No. And then for my corner, I'm gonna take who am I gonna take? I'm gonna take Pat Surtain.
Wait, you just said we weren't doing Snake.
Oh, we're not. We're not. I'm sorry. I'm tripping. All right, you're up.
Well, I'm not just saying that because you did, but I am taking Pat Surtain as my
You ruin
second
everything.
pick.
Okay, well then in that case, I'm gonna take who do I want for my safety? Because there's like a lot of different things to consider here, but I still think I'm just gonna take Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, you're up.
I am going to take. I'm just going to go back to back and get them both out of the way. I'm going to take Trent McDuffie as my second corner.
Okay, smart. In that case, I'm gonna take Sauce Gardner as my first corner. I still think he might be the best corner overall. So
Okay. Fair, fair. I am going to take Buda Baker as a safety.
ooh, good pick.
Yep.
Good pick. Well, in that case, I'm gonna take my second safety. There's a lot of different guys that come to mind, but I think I'm gonna take my guy Jesse Bates.
Dang it. All right.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to go Antoine Winfield for my number two
Ooh,
safety.
good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then I think the obvious pick for me at my last corner is Derek Stingley Jr.
That's a good pick. Yeah. No, I don't know. I could have taken him. I am going to go and keep it simple with my final pick. Relative to have made it this far on the board is impressive, but for my linebacker, I'm taking Roquan Smith.
Yeah. Well, it's just because we each only get one linebacker.
Yeah. Yep.
And then for rusher, so this is hard. Like obviously, like Micah Parsons is just such the perfect
Exactly, because it isn't just
player.
about physical. It really needs to be speed. I honestly have an idea of who I would pick. I'm curious.
I didn't really do like any research or I didn't really think about this beforehand. So now I'm just kind of wasting time trying to think of a name to fill space because this is a podcast and people could be listening on audio. So I need to fill time in while I think of a guy. Let's think. So I'm looking for a pass rusher that uses speed generally. That's not Micah Man, I really was hoping I could just get Micah Parsons. Let me look at my list. I just ranked the
I was
top
going to
15
say,
pass
you
rushers.
should have all of the top names on your mind.
I'm gonna go with man, none of these guys are really standing out to me, to be honest.
Really? Because there's one in my mind.
I'm gonna go with I'm gonna I just feel like this is another Jahmyr Gibbs situation where I'm like missing someone obvious. Screw it, we gotta just go. I'm going Alex Highsmith because he's like kind of oh wait, no. Oh no. I'm gonna go with Kyle Van Noy, actually.
Okay.
Just because I think it's funny.
Okay.
He's a middle linebacker who passes the rush, who rushes the passer surprisingly efficiently.
No Jared Verse?
Who am I missing? Well, I was thinking about him, but he's just not like I think. Like I wanted to pick. I was focusing more on like linebackers who also are really good at rushing the passer. And
I just think
Kyle Van Noy might be the best.
You're right.
Last
You're
year
right.
he had
And
crazy
not better than Micah Parsons, but you are right. What I'm just envisioning in my head is the comedy of like America lining up against like Botswana's flag football team and Jared Verse being the pass rusher is so funny.
He's just going out of his way to knock the center down. Just boom. Just starts bull rushing the center for no reason. Well, I also like the
But think about how
concept of us
powerful that would be.
Yeah, true. I don't really know if it's legal. But just think about the concept, though, of us having like a U.S. flag football team and our defense is Fred Warner, Sauce Gardner, Kyle Hamilton, Derek Stingley Jr., and then Kyle Van Noy.
Dude, the soaker himself, the Mormon. We love him.
It'd be so awesome. So go ahead and run through your team.
Uh, if I can remember, I had Micah Parsons, Pat Surtain, uh, Trent McDuffie, Antoine Winfield. Uh, who was my first safety? My goodness.
I don't even remember. Why you got to start writing this down? This happened last week.
Sorry. I'll start over. Uh, So my team finally at the pass rush, Micah Parson, my linebacker, Roquan Smith, my corners, Pat Surtain and Trent McDuffie, and my safeties, Buda Baker and Antoine Winfield.
Right. And so for my pass rusher, I had Kyle Van Noy, the GOAT, linebacker, Fred Warner, cornerbacks, Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley Jr., safety, Kyle Hamilton and Jesse Bates. So overall, pretty good teams. One is clearly inferior to the other, aka yours. But that is okay. You win some and you lose some, except if you're me, because I'm winning every single time. Okay. All right. Next, we're gonna be Wall Street investors, if you will. It's time to become financial bros.
Wait, one moment, one moment. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, I guess now I just am tasked with the job of filling the dead space as we look in the massive dent in Jonathan's chair. You might not be able to see it, but it's there.
I'm here for Wall Street. It's time to get business
He's a
done.
businessman doing business things. That was so awesome. Oh, I just called you fat, and then you come back.
I'm a dapper man. Don't you say that? I'll destroy
Yeah,
you.
you're classy as hell. In the court of law.
True.
Okay. Yeah, so we're gonna be adding some players to our portfolio, or potentially not adding players to our portfolio. So the question is, will you buy stock? I'm gonna name an NFL player, and I want you to tell me if you're going to buy low on their stock. Starting off, we have Deebo Samuel.
I will be selling everything that I have of Deebo Samuel. I have little faith that it's going to work out. I think injury-hampered seasons combined with, although a great quarterback in Jane Daniels, an interesting situation to throw Deebo Samuels into, I will not be buying low.
Yeah, I think that if you buy low, you're just a sucker.
True.
No, not really. I think there's some reasonable ideas of why you would. I'm personally not the one that's going to be willing to be so stingy with my money and with my stock. Obviously I have a lot of money considering how heavily I invested in the Baker Mayfield trade, but I'm not going to be wasting it on some Deebo Samuel.
For reference,
so the next name we have,
I've made my wealth in NFL stocks, pumping and dumping Odell Beckham Jr. for the last 5 seasons.
You're like day trading Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, I'm hiking it up every time. Man, remember the catch? He's coming back. Prime Odell is back, and then I'm shorting the hell out of
Odell
it.
stock. Let's go. All right, next we got Christian McCaffrey.
I will be buying as much McCaffrey stock as possible. It's a great way to round out my portfolio, and honestly, he should be coming back motivated. And even though the injury that he's returning from typically has about a 2-year timeline, I still think that because of the Shanahan scheme, he's going to have so many opportunities that this is a buy, folks.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I'm very bullish on Christian McCaffrey. I just think that, like you said, like he's going to be motivated after after his injury last year. I think that the scheme definitely helps him out, and I think that he still has the skill set in order to be as maybe not as productive as obviously his peak, which was an incredible season, but definitely productive enough for us to say that this is worth the investment. All right, next, a guy I think you're going to be investing pretty heavily in, Rashee Rice.
Rashee Rice. Let me just say that I am speeding to buy up this stock.
You are swerving in and out of
I'm
lanes.
swerving in and out. And are there potentially some casualties? Yes, but that's the cost of business.
That's what it takes to get ahead, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, I will be. If we were talking about potentially the character of Rashee Rice, I might not be buying low, but in terms of his production on the field, and if I'm coming at this from a fantasy standpoint, I'm not selling, but I'm standing pat because of the suspension that will be coming down the pipeline. But in terms of not looking at a full season, but just when he's actually playing per game, I do think that the Rashee Rice Mahomes connection will be excellent.
Listen, we're not these types of investors that go in for short-term game. We're looking at the long haul. And for me, when I look at Rashee Rice, I look at a guy who's probably going to be sticking with this man, Patrick Mahomes, for the rest of his career, who's going to be an incredible scheme as long as Andy Reid is still kicking. And so for me, I look at this as a long-term investment to add into my portfolio. You know, I'm not putting everything into him because of the character concerns, because of the different things related to his cases, if you will. But I still think that all of the things that I said beforehand lead me to believe that I got to buy some stock in Rashee Rice.
Absolutely.
All righty. Next up, we got Jalen Ramsey.
I will be. I'm gonna have to hold. I'm bearish on Jalen Ramsey, just purely in terms of age. The Steelers' defense and scheme, because it's a part of their culture, will be excellent, I'm sure. But I just simply don't know how much he has in the tank.
Sure. So yeah, I think this is our first disagreement. I'm pretty bullish on Jalen Ramsey.
Okay.
I think that, you know, talking about his scheme and everything related to that situation is going to be impactful. They added multiple different guys. I'm expecting Joey Porter Jr. to have a bounce back year. They got Darius Slay in the building, and I think there's just going to be a lot less pressure on his shoulders. And I think a lot of this comes down to, I think that people are so low on Jalen Ramsey that he doesn't have to have a crazy season in order for me to make my money back.
Entirely fair. We clearly have different approaches. That's the reason why I'm wearing this $3,000 suit and you're wearing that t-shirt.
I just smacked the mic. I knew you were going to bring up the darn suit. Listen, man. Listen, the billionaires and millionaires of this age aren't wearing suits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
they're wearing t-shirts.
I'm old school. I believe in solid fundamental football. Like what OJ
As
did.
opposed to this new age.
The 2,000 yards, not the other stuff.
Yeah, obviously. Speaking of running backs, Breece Hall.
I am going to conditionally be purchasing, but mainly due to the scheme that Aaron Glenn will be establishing in New York. As a player, I was never as high on Breece Hall as many people were, but I feel like we're almost to the point where his stock has dipped below a point where I would feel comfortable buying. You know, these are penny. Breece Hall is like penny stocks to a guy like me. You know, I'm trading in Buda Bakers and Vita Veas. I'm not dealing with your Breece Hall types, but yes, I'll buy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think his stock is gonna increase pretty significantly over the next few seasons. I think there's a few reasons why. You talked about the scheme. The other thing is that the Jets' offensive line is on the way up, and they have a guy in Justin Fields at quarterback who's just mobile who's obviously a mobile quarterback, and that just elevates the run game as a whole within within an offensive scheme. And so all of those factors are coming into play that I think that Brees Hall, he's not going to have a breakout season or anything like that. Maybe he will for his standards, but he's going to have a better season. They're going to be reliant upon the run game when you look at the personnel and everything related to that. So yeah, I'm buying Brees Hall stock. I'm putting my claim in it now, and we'll just have to see. Like you said, it is kind of a penny stock.
Yeah.
I've been dealing with Joe Burrows and Jamar Chases.
Wow.
For my team. And
High clientele.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the types of investments that I've been making. Alrighty, guys. Well, that's the last game that we have. Jonathan, why don't you pick a player whose highlights we should watch?
I know
or they should watch.
At this point, it's a little bit further back in the podcast, but as I talked about, Justin Jefferson does things that the human body should not be physically capable of doing. Go watch him right now.
Absolutely. And, before you do that, like the podcast, subscribe to our channel. If you like the content that we're putting out, let us know in the comments. If you don't like it, shut your mouth. Rate us, give us 5 stars on Spotify if you're listening on audio platforms. Thank you for listening. Thank you for engaging, commenting, liking. We appreciate everything. And we'll see you guys later.
Have a good one, folks.